Today's guest on the show is Kerry Mann, a podcaster, filmmaker, and the creator behind the documentary Healing Humanity. Kerry's film takes a deep dive into the powerful connection of health, healing, and holistic living. Kerry Mann, welcome to the Primal Foundations podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Tony. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I caught you for the first time at Hack Your Health. I was in the room, standing room only, by the way, full house, and got to see you showcase some of the clips from Healing Humanity. You know, the room was packed. You had incredible guests in the audience, like Dr. Kiltz, Dr. Chafee. What was it like for you to see a full house and, you know, present in front of like influential like figures like that?
It was completely surreal and unbelievable. Honestly, I still kind of pinch myself sometimes. Like, is this real? Did I really just go on this proper human carnivore diet, eat a bunch of meat, and now I'm doing this kind of thing? I've been doing YouTube for quite a while, but public speaking is something that I would have rather died than even thought about doing prior to carnivore. I'm a lot better on carnivore, but that whole thing was surreal looking out there, seeing Dr. Chafee standing there and Dr. Kiltz. It was pretty meaningful for me as well because those guys, I feel like I owe so much to. I found carnivore through other individuals, but I was never going to attempt to do something like that without sort of the reassurance of some of these good doctors. And so I just started doing a ton of research when I heard about carnivore, and Dr. Chafee popped up, Dr. Kiltz, Dr. Berry, Dr. Baker. And it's interesting, like, besides the information they were giving me, it just made me pause for a moment because I was like, man, this Dr. Chafee guy, he's a neurosurgeon that's literally performed brain surgery on people. Maybe I should just pause a moment and not do carnivore because a brain surgeon's doing carnivore, but maybe it's worth further investigation. And that's what I ended up doing. But yeah, that whole thing at Hack Your Health was surreal, incredible. I was very nervous at first, and then when I got done, I'm like, I want to do this some more. This was a lot of fun, especially being able to share some of these stories, like Bill Knott, who we have in the documentary. It seemed like the audience was kind of going crazy for Bill's story. He's become a huge friend of mine, so that was a lot of fun as well.
Yeah, I mean, it was a great presentation. I think everybody was on the edge of their seats and loved it. And I want to kick off the podcast too by talking about, you know, your start, your journey, you know, your personal health experience. So, can you tell us a little bit about your own health experiences and what made you go down this rabbit hole of finding a proper human diet?
Yeah, absolutely. So, proper human diet has literally saved my life. I had so many health issues. Started out with obesity. At my heaviest, I was 100 pounds than I am right now. I had kidney stones at one time. That was some of the worst pain I've ever been through in my whole life. I was diagnosed with IBS maybe 10, 15 years ago. My stomach just always was hurting me. Every time I'd eat a meal, my stomach would hurt. It's always like gurgling and bubbling. It always bothered me. I had my gallbladder removed several years ago because of these stomach issues, and they checked my gallbladder, and the doctor was like, "It's borderline. Like you could probably keep it," but I was in so much pain. I was like, "I want to try anything." So take my gallbladder out. Uh, a couple of years after that, my appendix burst on the operating room table, almost killed me if I wasn't going in. I was going in to get it removed, and it burst right before they started doing the surgery. Uh,
Wow.
a lot of these things I have found in retrospect, I think wouldn't have been issues. I really believe the root cause for most of these was my nutrition. I also had skin cancer on my ear at one time. But the worst issue for me was mental health. I suffered from just horrible depression, 10, 15 years, clinical depression, suicidal depression, horrible anxiety, turned into insomnia. I went many years without going in for help until my wife finally convinced me I had to go in for help. And then they put me on medication, and I did that for about a little over 10 years. I was on pretty much every antidepressant SSRI medication, and I was just the definition of hopelessness. And about 8 years ago, I was sitting at home and I went to sit up and I got very dizzy and my face was going numb and my fingers were like numb and I got very confused. And I was trying to tell my wife something and I couldn't find my words at all. And so she called 911 and I suffered a TIA mini stroke. and they rushed me to the hospital. I spent 5 days at this stroke unit in the hospital. And thankfully, I had some issues that lasted for probably a year, but it wasn't a permanent stroke. A TIA mini stroke is usually temporary. So I had to go in for physical therapy and things like that. But they did all these tests. You're like, man, this guy in his late 30s, why is he having a mini stroke? Why is he having all of these issues? One other issue I forgot to mention, I had sleep apnea using a CPAP machine for years, falling, just snoring like crazy and having trouble breathing. So they did a bunch of subsequent tests when I had that mini stroke, and they diagnosed me with congestive heart failure. They said your ejection fraction is 44, and what that means is just your heart can't keep up with the needs of your body. It's not pumping enough blood for the needs of your body. And they said maybe the sleep apnea that I was having was likely contributing to that and some of the heart issues. But I was just a mess. All of those things combined. And then on top of all of that, I ended up getting gout. I put that in fake quotation marks because I'm not sure if it was gout or what it was, but it was in my right foot, in my second toe, and it hurt so bad. It hit me one day and I could not put any pressure down on my foot. I had to use crutches. I went to the hospital. They checked it out. I went back. Over the course of 18 months, I saw 3 different doctors. 2 of them said it was gout. The third one just said, you just have a ton of inflammation in that toe for some reason. And if you want to fix it, we're going to have to do surgery. We'll have to cut the toe, cut the joint. They were going to put like this metal ball bearing in there or something. It was just a crazy thing. And that was the last straw. I didn't quite do that surgery. I was so close to doing it. And I saw a man named Dante Ferrigno from a YouTube channel, Ferrigno Freedom, talking about how he's going to do this all meat diet. And I thought the guy was insane crazy. On the flip side, I thought this makes sense because I knew a little bit about the ketogenic diet. I had found that years ago and I had dipped my toe in. I did a little bit of keto and I had some good success, but I could never maintain keto. But when I saw Dante, I'm like, the science makes sense. That's a strict ketogenic diet, but you're insane. How are you going to only eat meat? You're going to clog your arteries. You're going to get bored. You can't do that. And kind of long story short, I realized that video was 2 years old, and very negatively and cynically, I'm like, I'm going to fast forward, look at this guy's latest YouTube video. There's no way he's still doing carnivore. And so I went and looked at his most recent video. You couldn't even recognize him. He lost all of his weight, huge smile on his face. And he had so many of the same issues that I had, IBS and depression and brain fog and things like that. And he overcame all of those things. So that really, really lit a fire and inspired me. I still wasn't ready to do it. And then, like I kind of mentioned earlier, I went down the rabbit hole of research. I found Dr. Ken Berry. I watched probably every single video that he's ever done. And I was still in denial. Like, what's this dude selling? Like, you can't, this guy's talking about eating bacon. Well, there's got to be some sales pitch. And I never found a sales pitch from Dr. Berry. And then I found Dr. Philip Ovadia, because still my big concern, despite Dr. Berry, was I got congestive heart failure. I can't clog my arteries up with meat. And I found Dr. Philip Ovadia, heart surgeon who's performed thousands of heart surgeries. He's eating this way. I'm like, heart surgeon eating this way. Guy that does brain surgery eating this way. Dr. Ken Berry, family medicine. I'm seeing all these people. Dr. Jordan Peterson, I saw him on Joe Rogan. I'm like, arguably, whether you agree with the guy or not, a pretty smart guy, and he's eating this way. So eventually, from all those good doctors, I decided I'm going to give this thing a try. I told myself, I'm going to do this for 30 days as a strict elimination diet. I couldn't wrap my brain around just eating meat for 30 days. So I told myself I'm going to eliminate sugar and processed junk and all of this garbage that humans were never intended to eat. Essentially, I was telling myself, I'm just going to eat meat because that's all that's left when you eliminate all of that garbage, basically. And that's sort of how I started.
That's like such a common, I feel like a lot of people, especially looking at like 2017, 2018, it's like you might have got exposed to the Sean Baker, Joe Rogan episode. You might have got exposed to something on Instagram, but I feel like a lot of people are like, it's just Atkins all over again kind of thing. Myself included, I did keto to start. I was like looking for some relief. I had some autoimmune issues, former vegan for 2 years. I'm like, ah, man. So keto was great. But like you, like, I feel like I really didn't find the benefits until I really kind of eliminated a lot of different things. And keto was just like there's so many keto treats and keto this and keto that. And it's just like, you can't, it's like everything's stacked against you. But if you go to the carnivore diet, it's like, okay, this is my little wheelhouse and I stay in here, and the the results really speak for themselves. Um, now you've been carnivore for how long now?
I'm coming up on 550 days.
550 days. Dang. Awesome. What were the kind of immediate effects like leading up, and then how are you feeling now with some of those issues you described earlier?
Yeah, it was incredible. And I'm very thankful because not everyone has maybe as quick of results as I have, although lately from what I've been seeing, it's been kind of incredible. The first thing for me was I stopped snoring. And like I said, I had a CPAP machine for years. I had to strap this mask to my face. I hated that thing so much. I stopped snoring immediately doing carnivore. My poor wife for years, she had to listen to me snore. And then when I had the CPAP machine, half the time, like I'd stop breathing. She says, like, are you dead now? Now on carnivore, she's more worried because I don't make any noise and I sleep so calmly. She's kind of like, are you still there kind of thing? But
Nudge ya.
yeah, I stopped snoring right away on carnivore. And honestly, that kind of made me mad and happy at the same time. I was mad because my sleep doctor, I saw two different guys over the years, different CPAP machines, but they were just like, you're way overweight. You got to lose a bunch of weight. You're not going to stop snoring till you lose a bunch of weight. And my neck was always very large. And I was like 100 pounds heavier at my heaviest. So I needed to lose weight. But in my brain, that was the sole reason I was snoring. And therefore, I was pretty hopeless. Like, I'm never going to lose 100 pounds. Like, I've never been able to do that before. So I'm just going to snore forever. I saw Jordan Peterson, which we mentioned earlier on Joe Rogan, and on his testimony, he said to Joe Rogan, I stopped snoring the first week on carnivore. That's what Jordan Peterson said. Subsequently, I've heard a lot of other people, and I've since found the reason that I was snoring, and I believe many people are snoring, sure, it doesn't help being 100 pounds overweight. That's going to cause a little bit of it, but most of the issue for many people is inflammation. Our tongues, our throats, our airways get inflamed. And even if it's inflamed just a little tiny bit, that affects the volume of air that can go through your airway, and you can end up snoring. So I stopped snoring right away. I was so happy about that. Uh, I had like gone down the rabbit hole on sleep over the years. I watched like sleep specialists. There was this guy on Joe Rogan I remember years ago, Matthew Walker, talking about different ways to improve your sleep. And throughout the years with my horrible, horrible depression I had, the only thing that ever really touched it was a little bit when I did keto, but I couldn't maintain it. I fell into the keto snacks and all of that as well. But whenever, and this was rare, but whenever I get very good sleep, I could see the next day like, whoa, I'm not as anxious or depressed. There was like a correlation there. So when I fixed that snoring, I was just thinking, this is going to help with like a lot of things. And it ended up helping with a lot of things. The depression, anxiety started subsiding as like my sleep improved. So a couple of weeks into carnivore, my inflammation went down. I think that was like 2 weeks. Not the pain in my foot, the gout. That took a little bit longer, but I had pain in my lower back for years, and I didn't even know it was there. Like I knew it was there, but I thought it was an injury. I thought I lifted something weird in high school. This is always going to be there. It was like every night, my poor wife, I'm like, could you rub my back? It hurts. And she'd rub it. It would never fix it. It went away. Like within a couple of weeks on carnivore, I'm like, this is crazy. And then I'm like, I didn't even realize this, but I've always had this weird sort of achy tinge in my elbow. That went away. Things that had become normal because I went along with them for years and years and decades, and they became my new normal. I started noticing going away. My mood started getting better. The sleep improved. One of the most remarkable things that happened was actually for my daughter. And one of the reasons that I did this, I was kind of doing it as a science experiment for myself. My daughter, Lily, she's 19 now, but she had open heart surgery at age 13. She suffered 2 blood clots a couple of years later, nearly died in her house. And since she was 13, she had this skin condition called HS. It looks like acne. It's incredibly painful. It was all over her chest, all over her back. It hurt her really, really bad. Like she had open heart surgery, blood clots, and she was more worried about this HS. She came to me and her mom one day and she said, this is so painful. I just want to die. And we took her to 5 different dermatologists all over the state, like expensive specialists. One of them gave her pills. One of them gave her a cream. One of them said, we want to do an injection. And we tried everything and nothing worked. So when I was on day 8 of carnivore, I had this epiphany and I was like, oh my goodness, like Lily, maybe this is just the food you're eating. And I watched Jordan Peterson and his daughter, Michaela Peterson, and she totally reminded me of Lily with all of her health issues. So I said, Lily, I really think this is the food you're eating. It's almost like an allergic reaction. And she was so desperate, she decided to try it. Long story short, sorry, I tend to ramble.
Oh,
8 days into her doing carnivore, half of her back had cleared up from the HS, and she went on to do it for 30 days with me. All of it completely gone within 30 days. And this was 5 years that she suffered with this. And again, it made me mad because not one of those dermatologists that we went to in desperation ever mentioned nutrition. And that was entirely the cause. And they were giving her pills and injections and things that never worked. So that got me very fired up. Then my depression and anxiety started lifting. Oh, my IBS. I think within a month, 3 weeks to a month, I'm like, I can't feel my stomach. What is going on? My whole life, it was always this heavy pressure in the stomach. And I'm like, I feel like I don't have a stomach anymore. And no more IBS, no more like farting 500 times a day like I used to do before. I started feeling just incredible. And then my energy started going up. I remember waking up a couple of weeks into carnivore and telling my wife, I'm like, I feel like a kid again. I feel like my legs feel like they slept last night, like they're dead. Like they just feel so rested. I feel incredible. And on my 30 days of doing carnivore, I said, I'm going to do one YouTube video on this. I've been doing YouTube for like 8 or 9 years on our homestead. YouTube videos about chickens and goats and greenhouses. So I'm like, I don't want to change the subject to this carnivore thing, but this is so remarkable. I got to do one video on it. So I did my 30-day update on carnivore diet video, and it just went nuts. And like, I was really fired up and passionate. I was just telling the truth. Like, this is crazy what happened to me. I'm mad I didn't know about this before. I'm going to continue doing this after 30 days, even though initially I told myself I'm just going to do 30 days and I'm going to go back to moderation. I'm like, there's no way in hell I'm going back to moderation. I feel absolutely incredible right now. And that video took off. And then I started getting comments from people that are like, I had suicidal depression like you did, Kerry. 5 years ago, I went carnivore. It's all gone. I just comment after comment of people improving their mental health, type 2 diabetes, IBS reversing. I'm like, this is incredible. Like, I thought this was just like me and Dante and a few people like Dr. Barry talking about it. I'm like, there's a lot of people doing this with success. Why didn't I know about this before, or my daughter know about this before? And that's where I decided to do more videos and eventually decided I wanted to do a documentary about it.
it's mixed feelings almost, right? It's like you never knew how good could feel because you never felt that good and you have this relief, but it's also like you're saying, you're like, you're pissed off. It's like, what have we been doing all of these years? And it's a very like, go to the doctor, go here, go there. Well, it's just, you want to, sleep apnea specialist or whatever it may be, and just changing the nutrition and gone, you
All of
know?
it, all of it. I always show people this, but here's a little, these are like 15 to 20 pills in a container that I was on. And this isn't even all of them. I'm on zero medications now. I'm on nothing. My only medication is eating the proper human diet, and I'm absolutely thriving. Every one of those things, IBS, snoring, depression, anxiety, insomnia, every single one. The gout that I had in my foot, that took a little bit longer. That was around day 70. Avoided surgery on my foot. Like, it was all just the nutrition and the foods we're eating. Yeah, it makes me, I'm happy. I'm happy for myself. Like, I've figured
Mhm.
this out, but then I'm also mad because people are going back to those same doctors, and the only option that every single one of them are getting is, well, here's some pill we can give you, and they're not addressing the root cause of the issue. So
Yeah. Preventative care, it's not utilized and not looked at. It's all the aftermath. Lifestyle and nutrition is really going to be the key. And, hospitals are really designed for, what they are designed for. I break my leg, a pregnancy, an accident, whatever, but we are flooding in the hospitals for things that are 100% preventable. And unfortunately, everything is stacked up against us.
right.
Even from your knee high to the ground, cereal, meals out of a box, processed food, ultra processed, highly palatable. It's really tough to navigate the landscape of food today versus 100 years ago. It's just night and
Yeah.
day. So now you get all fired up, and I'm with you. and you want to start this documentary, like what are the steps that you start to take? Because I feel like that's a huge undertaking.
I wish you would have told me that on day 67 when I announced it, because you get this carnivore energy and you get like a second chance at life and you get really motivated. I had seen a documentary 15 years ago on Netflix called Fathead, and it was about the ketogenic diet. And it was a guy named Tom Naughton, and I believe he was like a stand-up comedian. He'd never done a documentary before. I think he almost filmed it on like a camcorder or something, but the information was valuable. Like the quality wasn't the best in the world. And I that was how I learned about keto. And I thought, Dr. Barry and these good doctors, they're reaching a lot of people on YouTube, but not everyone's on YouTube. There's a lot more people on Netflix or these streaming services that don't even know that this is an option. I guess I just wanted to get the word out to as many people as possible that were hopeless like I was with depression and anxiety. That was the main reason for the documentary and I've since been so blessed to interview like Dr. Georgia Ede, Harvard trained psychiatrist. She wrote the book, Change Your Diet, Change Your Mind. And so many of the people I talked to on my YouTube channel that had mental health issues, depression, anxiety, PTSD, overcame it by changing their diet. And I'm like, I wish I would have just had that as a tool in my toolbox. I probably still would have done the standard of care, but then I would have been like desperate. I could have tried this sort of thing. So on day 67, well, quick side story. My wife and I have triplets plus one. We have four girls. My older daughter, Lily, I mentioned earlier. One of my girls, Emma, was vegan for 5 years because she watched a Netflix propaganda vegan movie that kind of guilted her into doing this. Her mother and I were just like, this is just a phase. She's going to do this for like 2 weeks. And then horrible parents that we are, it went on for 5 years. And she was suffering. She was so fatigued, acne. She's going to bed at like 5:30, malnourished. And she decided to go carnivore. And a lot of people give me a hard time, like I forced her to do it. I never even thought she would do it. On her own, she decided to do carnivore, from going full vegan to eating a hard-boiled egg to like the next day she's eating like fatty ribeye and absolutely thriving. Like it was insane, her transformation. Her acne cleared up, her mood improved like so quickly. She's younger, so maybe she's a little bit more resilient, but I always said to her, she refuses to eat any meat unless she knows where it comes from, that had a good life. We get a lot of our meat from our neighbor. He's an independent 6th-generation farmer. He names his cows. He's not putting any weird stuff. The cows are grazing in the field. They have a good life. So I told Emma, I'm like, you're kind of like a compassionate carnivore. And then we decided to make a shirt. Like, that's a kind of a cool t-shirt, compassionate carnivore. And then I announced it on my YouTube channel. I'm like, well, wait a minute. I don't want to, what are you going to do? You got to sell the shirt, right? I'm like, I don't want to profit and make a bunch of money off of this. I'm not patting myself on the back. I want to just do this as like a passion project. I'm like, maybe we could make a documentary, and any money we get from these shirts, foolishly thinking like we're going to fund this whole documentary with some shirt sales. That was how it all came about. And my daughter Emma and I on day 67 were like, we're going to do this documentary. And in my head though, I'm like, we'll just do whatever. It's the words and the stories that matter. But I announced right from that day, I want to do it about the stories. I am hearing so many stories on my YouTube channel, and I don't think I could tell anyone, just eat like I eat. Just trust me, just eat carnivore. No one's going to listen, but you can inspire people, and they could see someone like Bill in Alaska or Jeff to Prosperis. They could see their story, and maybe it'll inspire them to want to change. So that was the idea from day one, but I had no idea what I was getting into. We have since, like, it's absolutely incredible what's happened since then. We have a whole team of like volunteers, and I'm really excited with the quality, the cinematography, like what we're getting in the documentary. But that was day 67. And then from there, I did a 10-hour live stream all about carnivore. And I had some of the good doctors and individuals share their stories. We did that to raise initial funds for the documentary. Then I met Bill Knott in Alaska. He was 700 pounds, stuck in his house for almost 5 years. And he sent me this message about his horrible suicidal depression, and his words just resonated with me. And 3 weeks later, my daughter Emma and I flew out to Alaska, and he was the first person we filmed for the documentary. We were able to raise some funds through that 10-hour live stream we did. We later did a 24-hour live stream and probably like 200 other just individual carnivore stories. And every penny we get from super chats, from live stream, from donation goes 100% towards the documentary. I'm not taking a salary. I'm not making a penny off of it. But that's how it all sort of started, was just kind of a crazy, foolish idea that's really evolved into something bigger now.
Yeah, like I said, it's a huge undertaking. I've had Vinny Tortorich on here a few times, and I've talked to him, and he's just like, you don't get into documentaries like this to make money. Like he goes, if you break even, you're lucky.
I have heard that over and over again. Yeah, if you get any little gas money, like 70 cents at the end of it, you might it's not a thing to make money. And on the flip side, like we're making it even crazier because initially I'm like, we'll just try to get this on Netflix or one of these things. We're trying to get it on the big screen. There's not that many main documentaries that end up on the big screen, but in order to do that, the quality has to be superb. Like we
Yeah.
had to get Netflix approved cameras just to make sure we could even get on Netflix. So it's really come a long way. But that was on day 67. I'm on day 550 now. So that was 480 days ago. We filmed over 30 interviews so far,
Wow.
including most of the good doctors. Dr. Ovadia, we filmed Dr. Barry down in Tennessee, Dr. Chafee, Dr. Baker, Dr. Kiltz, Dr. Tony Hampton out in Chicago. Um, we filmed some just incredible stories and then a whole bunch of individual stories since then. Bill Knotts being the big one. My daughter Emma and I just got back a couple of weeks ago from Alaska filming Bill Knott 1 year later. The whole premise of the documentary is we'll follow several individuals for 1 year doing a proper human diet for different health issues. And then we'll have a whole bunch of other people in the middle of the documentary that have already done 1 year. So just to, otherwise the thing's going to be like 12 hours long. But we just filmed Bill after 1 year, and that was pretty remarkable.
Yeah, talk about Bill because he's definitely, I mean, I only saw a little clip, a few
Yeah.
like clips here and there, but he seemed like a fan favorite for sure.
Everybody loves him. It's insane. It is so incredible because when Bill reached out to me, I could have like I had probably 1,000 people that said, "Yeah, film me. I'll be in your documentary." And I didn't spend hours and hours. I'm just like, what this guy is saying just resonates with me. He's speaking from the heart. The fact that we picked Bill and it all worked out is a miracle. It is absolutely insane. 3 weeks later, I went out to film him. I'm driving there with my teenage daughter. I'm like, this guy could be an axe murderer. I don't know. We just met this dude on the internet. He's like, come out to my house. I'm flying to Alaska to film him. Uh, he's since started, we started a GoFundMe. We helped him get his GoFundMe going because meat in Alaska is so expensive. We were hoping to raise $1,500. I think within like a couple weeks, it was at like $17,000. And then it's gone
Wow.
up crazy since then. So he has enough money to pay for meat to get him through the whole year, which was nuts. And he's in this small house. He hadn't left his house in 4 or 5 years. So when Emma and I went there and met him, he's just the sweetest, nicest guy. But we were like, I was scared. I'm like, this is crazy. This isn't even a house. It's more of a room. And he's not even stuck in the room. He's literally stuck in the bed. He can just barely walk to the toilet 8 feet away and he's hunched over. He couldn't stand up straight. He was always hunched over. He had to have his hands on his knees and he slept hunched over. And when we left, I'm like, I believe he has the resolve. I believe in Bill to do this, but it's probably too late. He's 700 pounds. He had AFib, heart issues, lymphedema, all sorts of swelling. Uh, but it's been incredible. He started a YouTube channel. He was on disability before this because he's stuck in his house, 700 pounds. He just within a couple months, he got off of disability. He's supporting himself through his own YouTube channel, stuck in his house without ever even being able to leave. I'm like, that's incredible by itself. He's built up a big fan base. Everyone loves him because he's just such a nice, genuine, sweet person. And yeah, a year went by, believe it or not. And Emma and I went there to film him 1 year later. So last year when we went there, I knocked on his door. He couldn't even get up to answer the door. He waved us through in the window and we went inside. This time I knocked on the door. Everyone's gonna have to watch it in the documentary, but he came
Wow.
outside and into the beauty of Alaska. And we filmed him at Hatcher's Pass, Alaska, which is one of the most beautiful places I think on the whole planet. And it's just incredible. He's down over 260 pounds in 1 year. He
Wow.
he's standing up straight. He could barely walk 8 feet before. He can walk like 80 feet now with no issue. He's walking upright. And the most valuable, important thing of all of this was just a couple weeks into doing carnivore. Of course, he had to lose a lot of weight being 700 pounds. Something more important happened for him. He overcame depression and anxiety. This black hole, dark depression he suffered from for years and years and years just vanished. It was incredible. I was so happy for him when he told me that. And that was another thing that got me fired up about this documentary. Like everyone we're interviewing is doing it for one reason, but almost every one of them is like, my mental health is so much better than before, even if they weren't depressed. The brain fog goes away, the anxiety goes away, and you feel like you've never felt before. So yeah, he's awesome. Bill Knott, Nott on YouTube, if anyone wants to. He does a video every week. I'm like, I'm a super fan myself. I'm like watching it all the time, just staying up to date.
Yeah, he did a little like kind of self video for the crowd at Hack Your Health, and everybody
Yeah,
was just clapping. They're like, yeah, it was great. And you're right about the whole like Netflix thing and trying to get it onto Netflix. And you have the production of like Game Changers, by James Cameron. Like that is something that I had people that I knew that were like, you know what, I'm gonna go vegan because of Game Changers. And it's
right,
like because it's a very like as you watch it, it's like, wow, this is amazing. This is like so well done. It's gotta be true. Well, I
right,
think they did a post like I think it was like last year or something where all the people that were in Game Changers, like those athletes are either hurt or they're not doing vegan or vegetarian anymore. So that's like out the door.
right.
Blue zones and things like that. It's it's something that I think that we need, because combating forks over knives, when that came out, I was victim to that. I'm like, oh, I'm going vegan for sure, man. Like
Yeah,
it's right there. It says I'm watching the doc. This is science, it's all good. But then
right.
my health started to deteriorate and I couldn't figure out why. I'm doing exactly what I should be doing. But to get those shots and get everything, it's gotta be tough and it's gotta be really hard. And you also like Bill was like one of the highlights, but Maggie on the ranch, how was hanging with Maggie?
Oh my goodness. Maggie's incredible. So for those that don't know, Maggie is 83 years old now. She's a rancher from Canada and she's been eating a carnivore diet for over 65 years. And we have a little trailer we did where she's flexing her muscles on the camera. Nobody believes that she's 83. She's got blonde hair, like her hair isn't even gray. Besides that, like people see that visual and it's so amazing to them, but I'm just like, you haven't seen anything yet. Wait till you see her in the documentary just talking. I had to keep reminding myself, and my buddy Adam, who's filming with me, huge shout out to Adam. Uh, she seemed like a teenager. She had the energy of a teenager. She's jumping over fences, climbing up on farm equipment, running around nonstop all day long, like putting me and Adam to shame as we're a little earlier in our carnivore journey than she was. I'm like, she just doesn't stop. She was incredible and so much wisdom. And like I said, we've filmed over 31 interviews so far. Almost every single one of those folks had some sort of mental health component or some other issue. Maggie, nothing, no mental health issues, never sick, nothing. Like she's like, I don't get sick. People are like, does she dye her hair? She's like, I don't put anything in my hair. I don't use any skincare. People are saying, does she use skincare because she looks so young? I just eat a proper human diet. She said, when you put the proper fuel in the tank, the engine just keeps going and going and going. And one of the crazy things with her, I'm like, you're 83. The average life expectancy, sadly, right now is in the 70s. People are dying in their 70s. Like, are you ever going to retire? And she got mad at me. I thought she was going to slap me. She's like, why would I retire? She's like, are you nuts? She's like, I'm just getting started. And she said, you can laugh at me if you want, but I believe at 83 that I am middle aged and I'm going to live to be 120, no problem. And I totally believe her. And I've talked to Dr. Chafee and some of these other doctors, the science behind it. Most humans should be living to be 120 if our bodies weren't in a state of chronic and systemic inflammation from the foods we're not supposed to be eating that we're eating. Probably all of us would be living well into our 100s. Yeah, Maggie was incredible. Like the cinematography and everything, I'm very proud of what we're doing. But one of the things that we're doing different than I've seen in any other documentary is these stories are so emotional and you get connected with these individuals like Bill, like Maggie, like Jeff Prosperis. I don't see that on a lot of other documentaries, even some of the good ones with really good cinematography. A lot of times they're flashy, they look great, but some of them get kind of boring. They get into all the science, which you have to have, and we're going to definitely have the science and the experts in our documentary. But really, the difference with ours is just this emotional connection. When you start watching our documentary and you see Bill Knott, 700 pounds, crying, stuck in his house in Alaska, and then we go to the next person, are you going to be like, oh, I'm good. I don't want to see if Bill gets out a year later or if he's still stuck there. It's like, it's hard not to get connected with some of these personal stories. I think that's how we can really change things for people is, like I said earlier, not telling them you do a carnivore diet, but look, this is what Bill did. This is what happened. This is what Maggie did. This is what happened, and try to inspire them that way.
And you're gonna get like these, you get the doctors, you get the personalized stories, and and especially with Maggie, you're gonna get some different information. I think she's also talked about like how the soil doesn't have the right nutrients anymore, and there's like all these like forever chemicals and things like that into the plants.
Yeah, 100%. She didn't care about carnivore. Her main issue, and I've been trying to do a good job of this, and we're going to in the documentary too, is the importance of soil health. She said, you look at a carrot in the store that everybody praises. Oh, it's so good for you. You got to eat your vegetables. She's like, that has 1/7 the nutrients in it that it would have even 50 years ago. I'm like, why is that, Maggie? And she said, because we're scorching our soils. It's just chemicals. It's monocropping. It used to be mom and pop farmer or farmers like Maggie that would do it properly. And the cow would poop out into the soil, and then the soil would have nutrients and bacteria and minerals in it. And you put a seed in there, the nutrients and the minerals and all that good stuff goes into that seed. You don't have it anymore. They're just scorching it with glyphosate and chemicals. You get a pretty carrot at the end because you're putting chemical fertilizer on it. It's got a green leaf and you think you're doing something great, but you're eating a carrot that's got 1/7 the nutrients it used to. Plus you're ingesting glyphosates and pesticides and forever chemicals. And I believe that's a huge issue. It was a recent sort of carnivore epiphany for me. All these 550 days or so I've been on carnivore. I'm like, I'm doing so good because I'm eating a proper human diet. I'm doing so good because I'm in ketosis. I'm doing so good because I'm not eating highly inflammatory foods that I'm not supposed to. All of those things are true, but I think a bigger piece of the puzzle that I'm exploring more and in the documentary is our gut bacteria and our gut biome. And when you eat a carrot that's got pesticides on it, what is that doing to our gut bacteria? I think it's not doing very good things. I know when you have antibiotics, it destroys your gut bacteria, and that could set people back years. A lot of people don't know that, how much we've misused antibiotics. And our gut bacteria, like Hippocrates said this 2,000 years ago, all disease starts in the gut. You are what you eat. Your immune system, your hormones, everything, when you have good gut biome, that affects everything in your body. So I think a big part of the problem that goes maybe underreported is Dr. Chafee talks about plants are going to kill you. There's toxins. I agree with that. There's pesticides, glyphosate. People talk about that a little bit, but what is all of this stuff doing to our gut biome, gut bacteria? Because people that are even doing just a clean vegetarian diet are still suffering with depression and IBS and all of these issues. And it makes sense when you take into account that all of those things are saturated with pesticides and glyphosates just everywhere now.
And people like Maggie, right? They're doing this. They want to do good. They want to do it more traditional, less chemicals. And I just had Sean Baker on the podcast, and one of the things that he was saying, he goes, if I'm not misquoting him, I don't think he's like the average cattle rancher is the age is like 65. So we're not getting more people or younger people into this, you know, cattle ranch business of where it used to be mom and pop, but there's now conglomerates and companies that are taking over. And who's going to feed us in 20 years? It's going to be big companies. And I feel like the American healthcare system, the food industry, like we got to start making shifts, or else it is only going to be downhill from here. And there's only going to be, and it's going to be stuff like Healing Humanity and podcasts and things where this grassroots movement to kind of steer people in the right direction.
Yeah, I'm so glad you mentioned that. That's going to be one of the biggest takeaways. At the end of the documentary, one of the big takeaways is going to be not that I'm eating a carnivore diet and that fixed everything, but I believe eating a carnivore diet is the closest I can return to what's natural for humans, given the 60,000 options in the grocery store right now. And that includes carrots and vegetables and produce for the reasons I mentioned before with glyphosate and pesticides and stuff like that. But the other big takeaway is the importance of supporting your local farmer, soil health. What do we do about this? I get a lot of my meat, like I mentioned earlier, from my neighbor, 6th-generation farmer. The guy is so underappreciated. He works a full-time job in a factory. Every single day I drive by, if I drive by his house at 4 in the morning, he's working in the fields. If I drive by at like 10 p.m. at night, he's working in the fields. And in between, he's got a full-time job. Working for pennies on the dollar. He's so passionate. He loves what he's doing. But to your point, I said the same thing. I'm like, who's going to raise their hand and be like, I want to do what that guy's doing next? Unless we start supporting these local farmers and giving them the support they deserve. You're right. It's going to be dismal what we end up with at the end of it. So uh, I'm hoping we get some sort of like revolution going there or something when people see how important it is. It's so nice. Like I'm so blessed I have this guy as a neighbor. But if I didn't even have him, I would drive 3 hours once a month, throw a couple coolers in the back of the truck, meet my local farmer, shake his hand, know where my meat's coming from, and know that I'm doing like a good thing, supporting someone that I want to support and keep there. It would totally fill up the freezer for a month or whatever, and it would totally be worth the drive for that versus just going to the grocery store and getting who knows what kind of thing.
Yeah, I think that it's growing. I feel like more people than ever have asked me about carnivore. Oh, I heard you do carnivore. I heard you only eat meat. Was it Jason Statham? Met with Anthony Chafee,
Yeah.
Eddie Hall. Got some tips from Sean Baker, and so like now we're getting these. What was the vegan, right? That was
Yeah.
like you had the vegan celebrities, and that was this thing. Now we're slowly but surely people are starting to who are, you know, influential, really take on this diet and, talk about it. Uh the other thing I want to talk about Jeff as well, because I know that you mentioned him earlier. I believe he suffered from cancer. And can you kind of tell us about, Jeff's story and how he's utilizing lifestyle nutrition to kind of battle cancer?
Yeah, 100%. Kind of like Bill, I ended up finding this guy online and he's become a best friend of mine. Jeff Prosperis. He's got a YouTube channel called Blessings on My Journey. He was diagnosed a couple of years back with stage 4 cancer. They told him, Jeff, you're inoperable, incurable, you're terminal, and you have about 18 months left to live. He had cancer that had spread throughout his body. And he was doing the standard American diet when he was first diagnosed with cancer. He started on chemotherapy and he was suffering. He was sick and fatigued. And as you hear with chemotherapy, it's pretty tough for a lot of people. And through a friend of his, Dwight, who's an amazing, amazing person, put him on to Ben Bickman and some other YouTube videos and the carnivore diet. And Dwight had done the carnivore diet. And Jeff decided to start. Jeff also did a plant-based diet for like a year. And he believes that that might have actually perpetuated the cancer because he was ending up, a lot of the stuff he was eating just converts to glucose, which ends up feeding the cancer. He started carnivore a little while into his cancer journey while he's getting chemotherapy, and it just changed his life forever. He's like, chemotherapy is so much more bearable. He wasn't getting sick. He's in his 40s. He's like, I feel like I'm 20. Uh, Similar to Maggie, we went to film him for about 5 days out in Canada. Could barely keep up with him. I literally got there and he had 2 pages. This is our itinerary. This is everything we're going to do. We're going to go to the osteopath. We're going to go work out at the gym. I got a coach tomorrow. All these things. We're going to go do the cold plunge. And it was just incredible. The thing with Jeff is he follows Professor Thomas Seyfried, who's been talking about cancer as a metabolic disease for like 30 years now. And Jeff's whole thing is he's not saying, oh, if you do a carnivore diet, you're going to cure cancer. But cancer feeds on sugar. Cancer feeds on glucose. So if you're starving of that, it's probably helping. But even if you don't believe all of that, the fact that Jeff overcame depression doing carnivore diet, the fact that Jeff feels like he's 20, the fact that chemotherapy is more bearable, the fact that he feels like his immune system is so much stronger on a carnivore diet, he's like, all of those reasons are good reasons to be doing something like this when you're going through a cancer battle like he is. So uh, he's incredible. He's so inspiring. And besides that, he also, the thing that's incredible, talk about a warrior. This guy has done, at last count, 43 5-day fasts every other week. So he'll do carnivore for a week and then he'll fast for 5 days, water only fast. And in the middle of the fast, he'll get his chemotherapy. And there's a lot of evidence around that helping with the chemotherapy and actually needing less chemotherapy medicine when you're doing that sort of thing. So he's incredible. He's like the Energizer Bunny. He's just a warrior. So we filmed him for about 5 days in the documentary as well.
Yeah, it's really amazing, like finding these people who are willing to give these things a try, and it could be the curiosity of the diet, but it's also like if your back's against the wall, you're gonna try anything. And if all these things haven't been working, um, you got to start somewhere, and you're gonna take whatever avenue possible. And it seems like these things are helping people's health and lives. And kind of also to the doctors as well. We already mentioned like a Ken Berry, Chafee, Ovadia, like these guys are going against the grain and kind of putting their careers on the line, saying, hey, like I like a Philip Ovadia, get off my operating table. I don't want you here. I want to keep you off of the operating table and get you metabolically healthy for a lifespan, and utilize the hospitals for what they're designed to. So, but without them, without people trying this and really questioning why, that's a piece too. It's like just because the doctor says something, like question those things, and you might need second opinions and really got to do your own. Unfortunately, you have to kind of your own research as well.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. I'm with you. Like, I was wondering early on, I'd meet other carnivores. I'm like, man, this person's just awesome. And then I was thinking, why do I like carnivores? I'm like, maybe it's because they're kind of just they're brave. You got to be kind of brave to do this. It pretty much goes against everything you've ever been told. And then I was thinking about these doctors, and I'm like, imagine the scrutiny they have to go through to go against the grain. That, like you said, they're risking their career with their colleagues and things like that. So I have so much. I'm always shouting out these good doctors. I don't know that I would have started carnivore without them. And I'm hoping that other doctors, I believe most doctors mean well, like a lot of the doctors that prescribe me all the medication I showed you. But if you became a doctor because you want to heal people and you're not asking them about nutrition or treating the root cause, you gotta change something up. People give me a hard time. They're like, well, don't blame the doctors. That's just the system. But I'm like, on the other hand, I say, I barely graduated high school and I was able to figure this out for myself. They're dedicating their life to healing people. They should be able to figure out that nutrition is a big part of this and that they should be treating the root cause. Now, I get the argument that they'll talk about nutrition to a lot of people and people will never listen because it's really hard to get people to change their diets.
Yep.
However, if someone is suicidally depressed, they should have this as a tool in their toolbox. And I was never given this as a tool in my toolbox, and a lot of people weren't. The only option I was ever given was medication. So
Yeah, it's really it's like talking to somebody about nutrition is almost like saying, "Hey, I need you to change your religion."
yeah.
You know, I
Politics, change your politics, change your religion. Yeah.
You got to pull them out of the matrix. For me, I utilize carnivore for a lot of different things for my health and wellness and well-being. But I really utilize it after I've healed myself. I had autoimmune issues. You mentioned antibiotics. Like I was going through doxycycline like crazy, and actually I was getting worse. Um, and it wasn't until I kicked all that and then I went on to carnivore diet, but I utilize it for like endurance events, like Ironman events, working out. And I just went to something. I just had a podcast earlier with somebody, and we are talking about. I went to this workshop about fueling athletes, and I'll go and I'll listen, and I'm just curious. I know it wasn't going to be a carnivore thing, but what they were telling people, and everybody in the room is nodding their heads, and I just was dumbfounded, like the amount of carbohydrates and sugary things and how many times they're eating throughout the day. I'm like, I'm carnivore. I don't even eat that much. I couldn't even, just looking at what they were telling the athletes or trainers to prescribe for their athletes in nutrition, it was crazy. And then we all got these little baggies. I swear to God, I'm not even joking. There was Pringles in there.
Oh,
There was Pringles in there. There
I
was
despise
like
Pringles, by the way.
gummy, like fruit snack gummies. There was all kinds of stuff. It was like basically candy, and like, oh yeah, have this before your run, and then you're gonna have to have a post-run meal, and then you're gonna have to have this and that, and like the amount of carbohydrates. I'm like, I did a freaking Ironman on less than 50 carbs.
Mm,
Don't tell me like you need, over 500 carbs for a 5K. Like
right.
it doesn't make sense, but that's what is the norm. And you know Casey Ruff, right?
Yeah.
I literally, because me and him worked together for my Ironman, I literally texted him as soon as I left. I'm like, dude, incoming long text, get ready. And I was just like describing all the stuff, and I took a picture of my goodie bag. He's like, man, I can't believe that. I'm like, yo, we got a lot of work to do. Like, this
Right.
is really bad. And people were asking about, like, hey, I have a lot of gut issues. I want to do fasted running or fasted workouts. I heard that helps. And the person just shot them down. And I wasn't even going to say nothing, but I raised my hand. I was like, listen, I do a lot of fasted workouts. I think if you want to explore that, you should do that. This dietitian basically just denied it. I was like, try it. It's self-exploration. If it works for you, great. If that heals that gut and GI distress, do that. But we're in this whole, like, everybody just stuck in the matrix and we got to
Yeah.
pull them out.
It's
Um,
crazy.
I went on
I
my own, I
despise.
went on my own rant there.
No, I love it, man.
Yeah.
I'm glad you mentioned Pringles. I had this is my brother-in-law that came over for the weekend, and he's anti-carnivore. He thinks I'm crazy, and he's got this big container of Pringles sitting on the counter. And I'm like, I would be mad if my dog ate one of those things. That's like how bad those are for you. The whole food thing too, like you were mentioning, that was the other story with Jeff Prosperis that made him so angry. He'd go in for chemotherapy treatments and they'd come around with similar junk like you just described. Here's cookies for you. Here's Ensure for you. Well, he's trying. That's like I'm trying to think of the analogy he used. It's like you're drowning and they throw you some weights instead, or it's completely opposite of what you should be doing. It's just insane. All the hospital food, and then the food that we're feeding our children in the schools is all completely backwards and messed up. The reason for doing this documentary was depression, anxiety. There's so many health issues in the world, right? But the real issue now, that the reason I'm so passionate about it, is children and this next generation. You mentioned earlier processed food, ultra processed food. I feel like I grew up on processed food and I ate pretty bad and I suffered horribly. And this next generation is like the ultra processed food generation. It's way worse than I ate. These kids walking around with the Starbucks and it's just full of sugar. They're just mainlining sugar and high fructose corn syrup and seed oils and all these ingredients we can't pronounce. I really feel like it's going to be a big awakening soon, like what is going on with this next generation and their health. And it should be no surprise, but it's like you said, we're in the matrix and everyone's just like, oh, it's just the way it's always been, kind of thing.
Yeah. And we're sicker than ever, you know?
Yeah.
Uh, you got the people, you got their stories. What's left? Like, what's going to be the next step here, or upcoming? And if you don't want to share or give anything away, you don't have to.
No, I'm happy to. We've done 31 interviews so far, but we still have more to do. We just filmed Bill 1 year later. We're still got to film Jeff and Mimi 1 year later, and that happens near the end of the year. So many people, myself included, are excited for the documentary. Like, when's it going to be done? And I'm like, the premise is to follow people over a year, and some of them haven't hit a year yet. So that's what's taken a little while. Um, and we still have a couple good doctors. We're going to be filming near the end of this year. We're going to be filming Dr. Georgia Ede down in Florida. And another big announcement that's pretty incredible is in January, we're going to be filming Tammy Peterson, Jordan Peterson's wife, in Arizona. She also was diagnosed with terminal cancer. She's been carnivore for a long time. It was so funny. We were filming down in Austin, all of the good doctors, Dr. Baker, Dr. Kiltz, and I got an email from someone and it said, I've been watching your YouTube channel and I've been enjoying it. I'd love to have you on my podcast. And it was signed Tammy Peterson. I'm like, Tammy, what? Like Tammy Peterson's watching my YouTube channel? This is so weird. Long story short, I went on her podcast. I was like, please, I would love to share your story. We have a whole cancer segment. You were diagnosed with terminal cancer. You've been doing carnivore. And she agreed to be in the documentary. And then she emailed me back and she said, oh, by the way, Jordan watched your teaser trailer too, and he just tweeted it out. And he has like 6 million followers. I was like, what is going on? And talk about surreal. I still can't wrap my brain around it. So we're going to be going to the Peterson family home and filming Tammy Peterson at the end of the year. So we're hoping to wrap everything up near the end of the year for the documentary. But long story short, there's so much that we can't fit it all in the documentary. So we've already decided, and we're already like editing some of this together. We're going to do a series afterwards where we can do a whole episode just on cancer, a whole episode just on depression, a whole episode on fertility issues. And I believe it'll probably go on forever because in the last just couple months, the number of incredible stories that have been coming through. I'm like, wait, we got to include this. And then it's like, we're never going to get the documentary done if we keep including these. So those will go in the series afterwards. And then even after that, we're going to do personal stories. So you can watch just a Bill Knott, all of his story. You can watch Dr. Kiltz, who, by the way, incredible doctor, amazing individual carnivore story of his own. You can watch a whole Dr. Kiltz episode, a whole Jeff to Prosperis episode. So, and then we're just gonna keep doing it going forward is the plan.
That's awesome. I'm looking forward to it. Big question. And what can people do, myself or anybody else, to help with this project?
Yeah, so the thing I'm very proud about is our entire documentary is crowdfunded, and I'm never taking a salary. I haven't taken a penny. I put thousands of dollars of my own money in it. What does that mean? Like, some people don't know this, but sadly, most documentaries, some that we mentioned earlier here, most documentaries nowadays are sponsored by some corporation. You'll get a Blue Zones documentary, and then you find out it's sponsored by Beyond Meat or some vegan company or Kellogg's or some sugar company or some pharmaceutical. Ours has been entirely crowdfunded, so there's no bias. I'm just telling the truth. If it's good or even if it's bad, I did carnivore, it didn't work. Like, I'm putting the truth in there. So if you want to donate, it's donate.healinghumanity.movie. And again, every penny from that goes towards the documentary. We're also selling like Healing Humanity shirts and memberships on my site. Everything goes 100% towards the documentary. I'm never going to take a salary. I want to do this and I want to get done with it and have it be a complete passion project that I didn't do for some perverse incentive, as Dr. Barry calls it. He says a lot of this reason that we're so messed up is because of all the perverse incentives. Everything is money, and I wanted to do something just for the passion of it. So, and if you can't donate, the other way you can help is just maybe sharing the teaser trailer that we have. If you go to healinghumanity.movie, you can watch our teaser trailer. It's like 3 minutes long. A lot of people have been getting fired up with that. You share that on Facebook, spread it around. We appreciate that as well. The ultimate thing you can do as an individual, though, is heal yourself. People say healing humanity. That's an audacious, like, how dare you? How are you going to heal humanity? And Dr. Kilt said it best. He's like, it's really easy. You just heal yourself. I'll heal myself. We all heal ourselves. And the best way to do that is just to return to what is natural for humans. Carnivore diet is the most natural thing I can do, but just returning to what is natural in your diet, in your everyday activity, not sitting on a screen all day, getting sunshine, exercise, fresh air, things like that. I think if once we heal ourselves, we become sort of this ripple effect, and then other people heal. And so those are some of the ways I think you can help out.
That's amazing. I'm super excited for this whole project to come out. I will be getting a t-shirt and I will be donating for sure, and spreading it out and putting everything in the show notes so that anybody that comes across the clips or whatever has access to the donation link. So, but man, this was awesome. I appreciate everything you're doing in the space, and this is an awesome project and it needs to be done. And so I thank you for your time and your efforts. And I know it's a lot, but I myself appreciate it amongst others. So thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. I really appreciate it, Tony.
Awesome. And thanks for everybody listening to another episode of the Primal Foundations podcast.